You're here because you want to get smart, fast, to cut through the jargon and understand what really matters.
Mhm.
Well, you've come to the right place. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a long-standing debate in how we learn and how we teach this sort of push and pull between giving people problems to solve first
Right.
versus giving them the instructions up front.
Yeah, this has been like a conversation buzzing around since the 1960s, really.
It's Bruner, yeah,
Yeah,
with discovery learning.
exactly. That spirit of exploration and learning, it's definitely appealing. But, a really important question keeps popping up, especially when we think about how our brains actually process information.
The cognitive side.
Yeah. The big one is, does throwing learners straight into problem-solving mode, you know, before they have any foundational knowledge, does that really align with how our working memory
Yep.
functions?
Okay, let's unpack this idea of working memory
Yeah.
because that's crucial here.
Yeah.
Think of it like the mental workspace where you juggle information in your head right now. Cognitive load theory basically looks at how much stuff we can hold and process in that space at any given time.
Hmm.
And the traditional worry, the sort of established concern, is that if you present learners with complex problems before they have the basics down, you risk totally overwhelming that mental workspace.
Overload. Pure and
It's
simple.
like trying to run a marathon before you've learned to jog. It's probably not going to end well.
Exactly. The concern is that all the mental energy spent just trying to, you know, figure out the problem from scratch,
Yeah.
it might leave very little brain power left for actually absorbing the key lessons when the instruction finally arrives.
Makes sense. But that's where our source material throws a fascinating curveball.
Ah.
We've been digging into an essay from the Educational Psychology Review. It's by Anna Gorbanova, Jeroen Van Marienboer, and Jamie Costley. And their argument isn't as simple either.
No, not at all. They suggest it's not just about inductive, problem first being good and deductive, instruction first being bad, or the other way around.
It's more complex.
What's fascinating here is their idea that there are actually many different ways you can sequence problem solving and instruction that can work really well with how our brains handle information.
So they can be compatible with cognitive load theory.
Yes. If, and this is the key part, if they're really well thought out and designed.
Okay.
This takes us way beyond the simple choice between just two approaches.
Right. So just to make sure we're all on the same page here,
Right.
when we talk about inductive teaching, we mean those methods where you start with a problem or a challenge, right? And then the instruction comes later,
Like problem-based learning.
or this productive failure
Yeah.
thing we need to get into.
And deductive teaching, on the other hand, is probably what most of us remember from school.
Ugh,
You get the lecture, the explanation, the rules first,
the direct instruction model.
and then you practice applying that knowledge to solve problems.
Gotcha.
And this essay really gets into the nitty-gritty of how these two approaches can be combined in different ways.
So many ways.
They actually outline 8 possible sequences. 8.
Oh,
And what really stands out is their conclusion that a significant number of these, at least 6, they point out,
6 out of 8.
including some of those key inductive methods like productive failure and problem-based learning, can indeed work well with our cognitive limitations when they're implemented effectively.
Okay, that's a pretty big deal, right?
It really is.
It challenges that immediate assumption that, oh, starting with a problem is always going to lead to mental overload.
Exactly.
Let's zoom in on one of these inductive methods they talk about, productive failure. It sounds a bit contradictory. How can messing up actually be a good thing for learning?
Well, the core idea behind productive failure is that learners first grapple with a problem. They really struggle with it, even if they don't manage to find the right
That's where
answer
they get the instructions.
before they receive any formal instruction on it. And this initial struggle, this effort, even without immediate success, can actually prepare their minds. It makes them better able to understand and remember the instruction that follows.
How so?
Well, they've had a chance to identify what they don't know, maybe activate some relevant prior knowledge, even if it's incorrect.
Ah, okay.
And so they're much more receptive, more tuned in to the information that can fill those gaps later on.
So the failure itself isn't the goal, but it's a really important step in making the later learning stick.
Precisely.
It's almost like trying to assemble a piece of IKEA furniture without the instructions first.
Yeah.
You might get parts wrong, put things backwards, but when you finally look at the diagrams, you'll have a much better sense of how all the parts fit together and why. You've experienced the problem spots.
That's a fantastic analogy. Really captures it. And it's quite different from deductive methods like direct instruction, where you're essentially given the instruction manual, the information right at the start before you even see the individual components.
Right. You get the theory, then the application.
Both have their place, of course,
Hmm.
but the essay really encourages us to think more deeply about how they interact, how they can be sequenced.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The authors aren't just saying, hey, sometimes inductive methods can be okay.
No, it's more fundamental than that.
They're advocating for a real shift in how we think about this whole thing. They suggest we should move away from simply pitting inductive against deductive
Like
methods.
it's a competition.
Yeah. And instead, really focus on how these methods are being used and, crucially, how they're being combined in smart ways.
This is such a crucial point. It's not about declaring one the winner and the other the loser. It's about understanding the subtle art of instructional design.
Designing the learning experience.
Exactly. The essay makes a call for future research to really dig into inductive methods that incorporate different types of support during that initial problem-solving stage.
So not just throwing them in the deep end completely unsupported.
Right. Scaffolding it somehow. And they also want to see more investigation into how these problem-solving activities mesh with different types of instruction, both expository instruction,
Which is like presenting information, lectures,
yeah, directly telling, and also inquisitory instruction.
which is more about questioning, guiding.
Yes, guiding the learner's own investigation, asking probing questions.
Yeah.
So you could have problem-solving followed by a lecture, or problem-solving followed by guided questioning, for example.
Ah, okay. So it's about crafting a more dynamic and tailored learning journey.
You got it.
Instead of just choosing between listen to a lecture or work on a group project, educators could think about sequences that strategically weave both together.
Taking advantage of the strengths of each at different points in the learning process.
Makes sense.
And this leads to what the essay terms a design perspective.
The design perspective, okay.
This perspective really emphasizes that whether a particular teaching method is effective or efficient or even engaging, it isn't just a property of the method itself.
It depends.
It heavily depends on the specific learning goals you have, the characteristics of the learners, things like their prior knowledge, their motivation.
Right. A beginner needs something different than an expert.
Absolutely. And a whole range of other factors and conditions. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
That really resonates. What really clicks for someone who's completely new to a topic might be totally different from what benefits someone who already has some background knowledge.
Or what motivates one person might overwhelm another.
Exactly.
And if we bring this back to your interest, our listeners' interest, in efficient learning, this design perspective is absolutely key.
How so?
Well-designed inductive approaches, even with that initial mental effort, that struggle.
The productive failure part.
Yeah, that part can actually make the instruction that follows much more meaningful and memorable.
Why? Because you know why you need it.
Precisely. Because you've already bumped up against the challenge, you understand why the information being presented is important and how it directly addresses your specific struggles or gaps in understanding.
Ah.
This can lead to a much deeper level of understanding in the long run, even if it feels a bit tougher at the very beginning.
So that initial feeling of being a bit lost or confused isn't necessarily wasted effort.
Not at all.
It's actually setting the stage for more efficient and effective learning down the line. It's about making those aha moments really land because you've already grappled with the huh first.
You nailed it. That's a great way to put it.
Cool.
And for anyone who wants to explore this further, the article highlights some key terms that are really worth looking into. Things like, obviously, deductive teaching, inductive teaching,
Right.
but also expository instruction, inquisitory instruction, problem-solving itself, problem-based learning, productive failure, and even something called the 4CID model.
4CID. What's that? Quickly.
It stands for Four-Component Instructional Design. It's a more comprehensive framework for designing complex learning, often used with these kinds of approaches.
Okay, good to know. Lots of avenues for people to explore if this deep dive has sparked their curiosity. And while the essay's abstract doesn't go into loads of detail on this, it's probably also worth remembering, just common sense really, that the complexity of what you're trying to learn
Sure.
and what you already know about it,
Prior knowledge, yeah.
those are likely to play a big role in deciding which approach or combination of approaches will work best for you or for a specific situation.
Absolutely. If you're tackling something incredibly intricate, maybe with lots of interacting elements, you might need more upfront guidance than if it's something more straightforward where you can afford to explore a bit first.
Finding that sweet spot depends on a lot of things.
It really does.
Yeah.
But the main takeaway from this essay, the big message, is that we really need to move beyond just declaring one teaching method the overall winner.
Yeah, forget the simple dichotomy.
Exactly.
So to wrap it all up for you, the listener, the ongoing conversation about inductive versus deductive teaching, it isn't really about finding the absolute best one. Instead, it's about really understanding how they can be strategically combined and thoughtfully designed. We need to keep in mind how our brains process information, like cognitive load theory tells us,
Absolutely.
but also recognize that well-structured, problem-first approaches, like productive failure and problem-based learning, aren't automatically at odds with that theory.
Not at all when done right.
In fact, they can be incredibly powerful tools for learning when they're implemented with intention, with good design.
So the big takeaway isn't that one method is always better, but that maybe as learners or as educators, we should appreciate the thoughtful construction behind effective learning experiences.
Regardless of whether they start with a problem or with direct instruction.
Yeah, and this raises a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. Can you recall a time when you learned something new?
Think back.
Did you learn it by first struggling with a problem, maybe getting frustrated before getting the answer? Or was it by being directly taught the information up front?
And how did those two experiences feel different for you?
Yeah, in terms of how well you grasped the material and maybe how much of it you still remember today. Was one stickier than the other?
It really is a fascinating area, and these insights, especially from this essay, they really encourage us to look beyond simple
Focus
labels.
on the design.
Focus on the art and science of designing effective learning experiences. Consider how these ideas might apply to your own learning journey, maybe, or in any situations where you might be teaching or training others.
It's all about finding that right mix, that right sequence.
To spark those genuine aha moments.